Global Organization, People of Indian Origin, Singapore.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of GOPIO Singapore, I welcome the President, Mr. Arikrishnan Muthusamy, Speaker, the Management Committee members, the members and friends of GOPIO. I am Prabhakar Sundaramurthy, your MC for this evening. I guess many of you here know what GOPIO is, but for the benefit of new participants who have joined our monthly talks, let me say a few words about GOPIO Singapore. The Global Organization of People of Indian Origin, the Singapore chapter in short, GOPIO Singapore, is accredited by United Nations as a non-government organization, and it is recognized as a secular, non-religious, and non-political global organization. Today, GOPIO is spread in more than 40 countries. GOPIO Singapore was inaugurated here in 2002 and is registered society under the Register of Society since 2001. Our vision is to bring people of Indian origin in Singapore and the world together to promote their interest in professional, cultural, and social with a view to realizing this maximum potential in the service of global peace, prosperity, happiness, and compassion. We like to thank all of you for joining us today and hope you will enjoy today's session. To begin, may I invite the President of GOPIO Singapore chapter, Mr. Harikrishnan Muthusamy sir, to deliver his welcome address. The stage is yours, sir. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, all happy faces after your good lunch, leaders of various organizations, our guest speaker of today, Mr. Farihullah, members of GOPIO Singapore and other chapters worldwide, a beautiful audience. It's my great pleasure to welcome all of you for this business talk today. GOPIO International. Last year, I must explain to you that GOPIO International is a worldwide body and GOPIO Singapore is a Singapore chapter of GOPIO International. So GOPIO International requested GOPIO Singapore to hold a GOPIO annual business conference last year. So we were very pleased with that, and we did hold a wonderful business conference last year. Leaders of more than 20 countries participated and were very impressed with that conference. So what GOPIO International did, they awarded us this year also to hold the conference, business conference. So we are extremely happy about it, and we'll be holding the conference in September this year. And I request all of you who are present today to participate in that program. We'll be sending out the details soon. Last year we also had the the International Youth Conference, which was well attended from 20 over countries. I hope GOPIO International will also award us that conference to us this year. So let us hope. All preparations for the International Business Conference is on the way, and we'll be sending you all the invitations soon. Meanwhile, I thought a lot of our members who are in the business community were very keen to extend their business, know more about their business, and since COVID-19 has subsided partly, they would like to come back into the business world and perform well this year. So everyone is trying their best, putting up sufficient efforts for that purpose. So we thought the Indian business community will benefit if we continue this program, say every quarterly, and a big program once a year. So on that perspective, we are holding the talk today. It's a quarterly talk. And these programs will continue every quarter in future. The objective is the business community will benefit, and those who are aspiring to be businessmen, the entrepreneurs or members of business community will benefit also. The other part is those members or audience who are present today. If you are not a GOPIO member, please register yourself as a GOPIO member. There are a lot of benefits for you. One of them is the business talk. For the youths, they have a youth program. We have a medical program every quarterly. Excellent doctors will come and give the talk, which will benefit many. It's a very specialized talk. If you wish to attend their program separately, it will cost you money. We will also be having yoga session every month. The last Sunday of every month, there are yoga sessions. And many people have attended and benefited from these yoga sessions because they are also telling you how to do yoga for different kinds of disease or human ailments, different problems, human problems, eyesight, how to improve your eyesight. So if you have a diabetic, if you are a diabetic patient, how to improve yourself without taking medication. If you have blood pressure, how to reduce the blood pressure. So this goes on endlessly. So we are trying to do a lot of programs for our members so that they benefit. And of course, we are also expecting more members to join in. For today's program, I'm very sure Farihullah will give you a wonderful talk, give you a lot of tips on international customs and trade regulations. I wish to welcome all of you for this session and thank you for attending this session. Thank you. Back to the MC today.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Harikrishnan Muthuswamy, sir, for your excellent welcome address. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today's session, Mr. Farihullah Abdul Wahab Safiullah. Mr. Farihullah is a member of GOPIO Management Committee, and he is also the president of United Indian Muslim Association, the Deputy President of Federation of Indian Muslim, and a head of TAA Trust Fund, and the chairman of SASCO Senior Citizens Home, and also the Assistant Secretary of GOPIO Singapore. Mr. Farihullah is a seasoned trainer conducting extensive training in trade and custom procedures and requirements for more than 25 years under the Singapore Customs. He is presently an investing officer and a polygraph examiner with the Singapore Customs. His noble desire to share his vast knowledge and experience in international trading procedures, import and export practices with a wider audience is applaudable. Today, his speech will be on international trade and regulatory requirements. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our speaker, Mr. Farihullah Abdul Wahab Safiullah. Sir, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabharan. Thank you, Mr. Hari, sir. Once again, I'm really thankful for inviting me to give this talk. Allow me to just share the screen and at least we can go on from there. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, sir, we can see it.
Okay, right. So I put into is it very clear?
Yes.
Okay, good, great. Once again, thank you very much. We have a lot of distinguished guests. I believe I can, in fact, mention each and everybody's name, but due to the time constraint and the global, I invite everyone to for participate in this. Today's topic will be international trade and regulatory requirements. Earlier, they were mentioned about the customs requirement and others, but in Singapore, other than customs, we have a lot of regulatory requirement. Example like International Enterprise Singapore. We do have LTA. We have IRAS. There are so many regulatory bodies behind the trade. So in that note, we have mentioned this as an international trade and regulatory requirement. So thank you, Mr. Harisa, informing about my years of experience. Quickly share my years of experience in customs and other area. This is my profile photo. I joined custom in May 1995 as a coastal patrol officer, followed by cargo clearance officer. And 1998, I was doing unstaffing and also a task force officer. In 1999, I have posted to checkpoint. During the time, this called CED, Custom and Excise Department, now is known as Singapore Customs. After which, I started my investigation career as an investigation officer at Tuas Land Checkpoint. And after that, I became the field investigating officer. Later in June 2005, I was posted to trade control officer. Trade control is very important. The reason is actually this is the area we look into strategic goods control. Followed by continue as an investigation officer and also perform as an ops management officer. Followed by May 2013 and to February 2019, I was a trade investigating officer. So trade investigation officer, what I do is mostly look into the importation of vehicles and other goods into Singapore. So I was doing that investigation. Don't worry, I'm doing investigation today. I'm going to share with you how you're going to do the trade in Singapore in a very peaceful and fruitful manner. Followed by, during the time I was sent to US to do a polygraph examination. So I did the polygraph examination course for 3 months. Currently, I'm also a polygraph examiner with Singapore Customs. What others I do as a trainer, I teach code etiquette, Singapore code familiarization, and SOPs, standard of operating procedures. I also do conduct training for the new officers coming to Singapore Customs and conduct intermediate investigation course and also detecting the trade irregularities in a trade document, and not last but not the least, also a detection of deception, which is a polygraph examination. Other than this, outside, I have been conducting this course, international trading procedure, import-export practices in Singapore Customs, procedures and process in global trade, transport economics, warehouse management, marketing, business management, business communication, operation management, and financial management for retirement days. These are the courses I'm conducting outside. Apart from it, they have earlier mentioned about my community involvement, which I don't have to repeat again, which I've been in the board for quite a number of organizations. With that, we go into this program today. Before I go into program, I just want to make a disclaimer. Even though I'm with Singapore Customs, I'm giving you all these tips, or maybe the practices in Singapore by regulatory, all from the public domain. So if you need more than this, definitely you have to seek the expert advice with the relevant department. GOPIO and other representatives will not be responsible, for example, if you go and do something without our expert, without having an expert. But up to date, I already updated whatever I'm going to speak today. So totally what we're going to give you all are our independent, is not representing any of the authority. With that, we move into international trade and regulatory requirements. International trade and regulatory requirements, why it is very important in Singapore especially. Singapore is a global hub, is a trade hub, is a transshipment hub. We have been doing trade in and out. So how are you going to do trade in Singapore with a minimum cost, at the same time benefit and a long-term lasting and all this? So in order to do that, not only you have been doing the trade, at the same time, you should be competent enough to know what is the requirement from the authority. So usually whenever I'm starting my training, I always play these slides. You can see the slides here, which is, you can see a river here. And this is a small story, always begin with why it is. At the end of the story, you will know why I'm sharing this story. You can see something is cooking and there is a mat here. And also you all can see a hut at this corner here. These two persons here, due respect to all the race and religion, are residing in this hut. Every day in the morning, what they will do, they will wade across this river because the river is very deep. They wade across the river. It means to say they walk on the surface of the river. How are they going to walk on the surface of the river? Later I'll teach you after the story. So walk on the surface of the river, they will do the meditating. While meditating, the first person realized he was cooking. It is going to be heavy rain, so he need to put the pot inside the hut. What he did, again, he went across the river and put the pot into the hut and come back to his place to continue to do the meditating. Then the second person also meditating realized that his mate was outside, so he need to put into the hut. He continued to go and put the mat inside the hut and come back and continue to meditate. While they were meditating, there was one more person joined here as a meditation. He's not in this area. When he came here earlier, he said, can I join you in the meditating? So he continued to do the meditating. So while he was doing meditating, after they come back, he also need to cross the river. He told them, hey, I need to cross the river too. So he started to walk. When he started to walk to cross the river, what happened is, when he started to cross the river, what happened is, these two of them said, can you just wait a while? We teach you how to cross the river. He said, don't worry. I think I should be able to cross, even though I'm also doing the meditation. I believe you got the power from the meditation, I can cross the river. But what happened is, when he started to cross the river, he just drowned into the river. Then only two of them saying that, poor fella didn't want to listen to us, where are the stones are. This is the moral of the story, is actually in any regulatory, what we do, we have all the solution for everything. So most important is actually we follow what is the requirement. We will not losing anything. In any trade, what is the magic of any business? So magic of any business is not just you go there, you just start a business. I always teach people, whenever want to do a business, you can follow many business technique, but one of the most important thing you can follow is you have to be differentiation. That means you must be different from other people what you are doing. When you have a niche of doing different other people doing, you will be having something which other people not doing. So you will be having a better opportunity than the others. Then next, what you need to do is to focus. So when you focus on what you're doing is definitely will bring you to the peak of the business. So when you have a differentiation, when you have a focus, then what you need to have is a cost leadership. What does it mean, cost leadership? Everybody will buy at the same cost. If everybody were to sell at the same cost, you won't have to same price. Your profit margin will be the same. The most important is actually when you buy the goods at the cost everybody buying, when you sell them at everybody selling, in between you will have other administrative costs. So that is a cost actually will be a cost leadership for you. For example, here today, we're going to talk about business regulatories. In Singapore, if you want to bring in any goods, of course, one of the most important channel is customs. So when you want to do bring in a goods into Singapore, what you need is a permit. So in order to have a permit, you can approach the declarant authority. You can do it yourself. That's where you're going to minimize your cost leadership. So if you do all this in application, there will be a success in your business. With that note, let's go to the topic we're going to cover. In between, you have any question, anything, you can leave it in a chat box. Definitely, I'll be taking the question later. Today, we're going to cover all these topics. Import and export procedures, which is the most important whenever you do an international trade. And international trade risk, that means to say, what are the risks we face if you do a trade internationally? The harmonized system. Harmonized system refers to the product, something like we do have an ID. Every product have a number, is an ID number. So this harmonized system is worldwide recognized. The responsibility and function of IE Singapore and customs. Although I have not mentioned here the other authority, this is the most important regulatories in this trade facilitation. And we're going to see about what are the trade documents needed for importing and exporting into Singapore, followed by the customs procedures, followed by type of permits. CCP means cargo clearance permit, and the free trade zone operation. What is a free trade zone? In every country, they will have a free trade zone. Generally, what will happen is the goods will be deposited into free trade zone. So after the free trade zone, where the goods going to, we will be explaining later, followed by the overview of GST. GST stands for the tax, goods and service tax. Some people, they mistaken as a government sales tax because most of the country, they're having a sales tax, but ours, we call it a goods and service tax. Let's begin with the imports and export procedures. When you're going to the import and export procedures, fundamental is we need to know the difference between the local business and international business. This not only the differences, you will have a lot of differences, but we must focus into the focal point. When you talk about the local business, very important, what you need to do whenever you want to fix a local business, we look into the price, the transportation mode, how you're going to deliver to your place, whether you're going to pick it up, are they going to deliver, the method of payment, whether you're going to pay by check mode, or maybe currently we have a lot of Pay Now, PayLah, other UEN transfer. The timing of payment, they mean to say whether they're going to give you 30 days, 60 days, 120 days, this is time of payment. And do you need to take any insurance? For example, even though it's locally delivered, is it you have to take an insurance, or you can just continue to buy without an insurance, taking the risk of purchasing the goods? The fundamental transaction is happening within the country. So if happen to be any dispute or anything, it can be resolved simply because it's within the country. So as I mentioned earlier, if you want to do business in Singapore, just a local business, fine, you can do it. But in order to be a cost leadership, in order to maximize profit, you have to move into international business. So what are the difference in a international business? When you talk about an international business, the difference in laws and judiciary system. For example, in Singapore, we have a Custom Act, Free Trade Zone, Singapore Strategic Goods Control Act. They mean to say, for example, you are purchasing a goods. You can be just a normal goods, pencil lead. We have to look into it. For example, you're exporting to a country which is maybe a red flag country. So before exporting it, you need to know whether this country or this person going to use for what purpose. That's where the strategic goods control, one of the example. The others is actually MES scheme. What is MES? It's a major exporter scheme. Generally, what we do when we purchase things from overseas, most of them think I need to pay the 7% GST, or what I need to do is I have to pay the duty and GST for the goods. Singapore, there are 4 broad category of items are dutiable. There are tobacco products, petroleum and diesel fuel, liquor, and motor vehicle. Other than that, others all are GST payable. The current GST rate is 7%. So when you have a major exporter scheme, what we can do, you can bring in a goods. In order to have a major exporter, you have to prove to IRAS. This is managed by IRAS. IRAS is IRAS Inland Revenue Authority of Singapore. They are managing this. So once you given this major exporter scheme, you can bring in the goods without payment of any GST. But later part, when you're exporting to the other country, you just have to take another permit to export it out. If you sell it in Singapore, you're accountable to IRAS. That's where I'm talking about a cost leadership. What will happen is actually, if you are thinking that anything I'm bringing into Singapore, I got to pay the GST 7%. Here you see, you already saved the 7% by not incurring at the point. At the same time, in Singapore system, you all know very well, if you're a MES, if you're a taxable person, especially whatever GST you pay to the government, you can collect from the consumer, or you can export it out, so you won't pay the GST at all. The next is example, they call it TI. TI means temporary import. Example, I'm a diamond. I'm actually a diamond dealer. So I need to display a diamond here, but the cost is very expensive. It could be $1 million. GST 7% is very high. So I'm not going to pay. Can I not pay the GST? Yes, you can take a temporary import permit. You can bring in the goods into Singapore. They will be given a certain period for display. After that, you will export it out. Let's say, for example, if you want to sell in Singapore, obviously you're going to collect the GST from the customer and you pay the GST to the customs. And the other thing called license warehouse. License warehouse is the extension of the free trade zone. So what happened is license warehouse and a bonded warehouse is an extension of the free trade zone. License warehouse, earlier I was mentioning like those product dutiable, liquor, tobacco, motor vehicle, all these from free trade zone, you can move to license warehouse without payment of duty or GST. Whenever you are ready to sell the goods, then you will be paying the duty and GST. Other than that, you don't have to pay duty and GST. That is another cost leadership you will be benefiting from Singapore trade facilitation. And for bonded warehouse, those goods are not falls under the license warehouse category, non-dutiable, which is only GST payable. So what you will do, you will be storing it in a bonded warehouse. Again, compared to in Singapore operating a business, as Mr. Hari mentioned, what are the tips? To operate this license warehouse doesn't mean I'm a trader, I must have all the warehouse. Not necessary. What you need to do, there are licensed operator operating the warehouse. Whenever you bring in the goods, you can just deposit into the warehouse still you do not have to pay all the taxes unless you want to sell the goods. Other countries, whether the facilities available or we don't know, but Singapore, we do have all these facilities. Beyond that, we have more than these facilities, which we'll discuss later. So when you do this international business, the other uses will be very complicating the Incoterms, international trade terms we are using. Example, FOB. FOB stands for free on board. So when a goods is shipped on the free on board, what you need to do when you declare the tax, you have to declare on the CIF value, that means cost, insurance, and freight. Sometimes what will happen in the documentation, they put free on board. So if you were to declare free on board, that means you will be short declaring the tax to the authority. And also if you declare on the CNF, so the best is to declare CIF. So you need to know the cost, insurance, and freight. Sometimes what will happen is when you purchase goods from overseas, they will set as CIF. Some even they sell at a DDP. That means delivery duty paid. They will deliver to you on your doorstep. Sometimes what will happen, you will be applying for a letter of credit. So you have to ensure whether the DP, that means document against payment, or DA, document against advancement, or the letter of credit LC, which is you get a facility of letter of credit. You also have the other relevant issues, like for example, the unit of measurement, UOM stands for unit of measurement. Okay, example, in Singapore, we normally count by per unit per number, or sometimes you count by per dozen or pair. If you take for example, in Indonesia, if you go there, very often they use the word called Kodi. Kodi, anybody knows? Kodi stands for 20 pieces. So when you are trading with other people, so sometimes what they do when they put the pieces, maybe you have ordered like a dozen. When the country comes from there, it will be the 20 pieces per Kodi. So what you need to do, ensure check everything before the declaration. Okay, this is actually the comparison. Earlier, we already explained. Okay. What are the risks you have when you're doing the import and export procedure? That means international trade. The risk, what is the risk actually? Is an uncertainty, which is poses danger, adversity, or suffering from financial loss. The credit risk, when you purchase from overseas, it's okay, you're paying the money. What about you send the goods overseas? Sometimes the person become insolvency, default in payment, or unwilling to accept your supply. The others you have, when we deal in a foreign currency, you have a currency exchange risk. And also sometimes what will happen is when they bill in a currency, it says coming from UK, something unknowingly you can see they bill in US. So when you go and declare in US instead of UK, which is supposed to be paid, it will be a very difficult situation explained to authority. The other thing we have like transportation rate, a mode of transport. Why I put in here Malaysian highway and normal highway? Saying that, for example, you can see Malaysia, we have a normal highway, a normal way and a highway. Generally, when the goods go through the highway, you will reach in a faster time. We go through the normal way, it is a shorter time. I mean, it is a very long time. Same thing goes to whenever you import goods from overseas, whether it to be by flight or whether to be by ship. So definitely the time will be taken. So very important as an international or import-export procedure, and the businessman who is importing from overseas, ensure what is the demand here, what is the customer wants to take in. So ensure definitely when you're importing the goods from overseas, ensure to meet the customer demand is most important. The other external trade, what will happen is different countries will have a different language barrier. Example, again, why I'm quoting Indonesia example, I have been there several times. Once in my experience, I was in Jakarta. I was going to Bandung. When I was going to Bandung, in fact, I want to hire a car. Then I was going around in my simple Malay, which I know. I say, "Sana sewa kereta." That means I want to rent a car. When I go around asking of people that I want to rent a car, most of them, they are just smiling or just going away with me. The later part, when I go to the hotel, they say, "Why don't you go and check with a rental company called Bluebird?" So I went to check the company. Yes, they provided a car for me. After they asked them, why, whenever I ask people about when I want to save a creator, they have been just looking at me. It's like very astonishing way. They say, in Singapore, you call it creator is a car. In Singapore, in Indonesia, creator is a train. So this guy is asking me why you want to rent a train to go to this place. So it's very important when you are with other countries, the language is most important. Of course, if they speak universal language, English is good. If not, you have to engage the interpreter to talk. Especially if we talk about Japan, yes, a lot of people can speak English still. Most of them, they speak in Japanese language. Then their customs, what happened is certain country, like our tradition, sometime after the on the light, I will not sell the goods to you. And the currency use I have explained earlier, the measurement I explained earlier, and the weights and the value. The Incoterms also I have explained, and problem in payment, transportation, packaging, varies in customs duties and insurance and other documentation. Certain countries, what they will do, like for example, in Singapore, for liquor, they go by the percentage. There's a duty rate and go by percentage. For car, they go by flat 20% of duty rate. If you go to other countries, what they do, they go by series. If you can see, like our COE was like below 1600 cc, what is the rate? Above 1600 cc, what is the rate? So this is most important for a businessman to understand what is the external business is. Okay. This is another area which we need to know and we need to be very cautious about. Some time ago, when we register the business, we will get a business number. Mr. Hari and others, all they know very well about the experience of a business number. And customs, they use the customs registration number, CR number. But now what happened is everybody using the UEN number, that means unique entity number. This unique entity number also it can be used to import goods from overseas. So what will happen is, if you go to the website, UEN website, you type in a company name, you can get the UEN number. So you can use your UEN number, you can bring in any product. For example, the company belongs to A, B can take the UEN number, can use it. So when you have this, how am I going to safeguard myself from my company? That's where you can register with custom alert system. So whenever people use your UEN number, automatically there will be an alert coming to you. So most important is actually when you have not only customs, every authority, they have the kind of alert system. You can just ask the authority what kind of alert system you have, then you can follow. It will be better for you. You will not face difficulty. Through my experience as an investigating officer, I have seen a lot of goods will be smuggled into Singapore using they call it a concealed compartment in a cabinet, wardrobes, even they put into the packages and all this. But the UEN number will be not belongs to this company, will belongs to another company. When we ask the company, hey, how come your UEN number you know about it? I didn't know about it, because you see you just go to the website, you can get a UEN number, you can use them. That's where you're having the problem. So you must be very careful. Then you can just put an alert system on this. Come back to domestic trade again. Okay, we have covered on all this. Okay. The other is actually money laundering. What will happen is sometimes you go and engage with a new trader. You do not know about what they're doing. What will happen is sometimes they will do money laundering. There was various type of money laundering. One of the example I can just come across, can see is what people will do. They will export the goods from overseas to you. Sometimes it costs only maybe about $10,000, but they bill it at $1 million. Then they will buy back at $10,000. This is where kind of money is moving around. You must be very careful about it. The other thing is misuse of the quota system. Example, some country, they have this. In order to export $10,000 of goods from that particular country A, you could have, sorry, in order to import $10,000 goods from overseas to country A, they should export $20,000 of the goods to overseas. So when you want to export $20,000 of goods to overseas, if the goods value, there's no goods to export, they just put any kind of goods, they just put the value 20,000 export to other country, and in order to import this. So if you are engaging with this, sometimes what will happen is I have come across many people, they just lend their IC, lend their UEN number to do this. It's okay, you can do the business. But end of the day, when it comes to authority, they will go after the person who are importer on record. That means whosoever the importer on record. You must be very careful on this. So how are you going to reduce the risk? For example, if you are an importer, there are many ways of doing it. What you can do, having the exporter invoicing in local Singapore currency. They mean to say, when they export the goods to you, ask them to bill in Singapore currency. So in a sense, for example, you bring in goods from United States, you bill in Singapore currency, end of the day, maybe 30 days later, you're going to pay in Singapore currency, you're not going to lose anything. What will happen is if coming from US, coming on the 1st January, the exchange rate is 1.3. When reaches Singapore already, after 3 months, when you want to pay the money, the exchange rate become 1.6. So it is an increase of 30 cents. So it is a huge percentage. So when you're going to pay, what you will do, you're going to definitely lose money instead of earning money, because the 30 cents is become your loss. The other thing, what you do, invoicing to be in foreign currency, then fix the exchange rate. For example, if the US say, yes, I'm going to send you only in US currency, no worry, I can give you back US currency, but fix it at 1.3, not more than that. So this is another method you can do to safeguard from losing your profit. Or what you can do, you can operate a foreign currency account and depositing. That means to say, you can have a foreign currency account in overseas. The later part, you will have the money there. When you want to issue the payment, you can pay from there. So you will not be losing anything. Of course, sometimes you want to put in the money, later part, it could be exchange rate. Usually, whenever you have been trading, you have the money there, you can pay them. It will be very beneficial. Or having his banker to fixing the rate in a forward contract. This is another method. If you are an exporter, you can reduce the risk by invoicing his buyer in local currency. That means your buyer, you invoicing them in local currency, end of the day, he's going to pay you in Singapore currency, you will not be losing in any exchange rate. The other thing, what you can do, invoicing his buyer in foreign currency, then fixing the exchange rate, same as the above, operating foreign currency account, and instructing his banker to fix the rate in forward contract. This is the example of the Incoterm you use. That means like from X work to the DDP. Generally, the X work or FOB means the buyer taking the responsibility of buying the insurance payment for the freight charges. If the thing is, okay, generally what will happen is either they will be doing it in a FOB term or CIF term, CIP or CIF term. So CIF term, what they will do, when you buy the goods in CIF term, the seller is responsible of including the insurance and freight charges. Why this is most important, especially in declaring of a tax in Singapore? Whenever you declare tax in Singapore, it must be at least in the CIF term. And some of them, you may incur any incidental charges. You have to include that as well. That is where this is easily available on your website. You go to any website, you can just put for international trade terms, you should be able to get it. Next comes to the harmonized system code. Let me on the thing. Harmonized system. Earlier I was mentioning about harmonized system. Harmonized system is the one is actually the number attributed to the goods. So this is most important. Later I will show you some of the sample of permit where you will see this harmonized system code. It is an essential nomenclature at 6-digit level, actually more than that, but internationally recognized the first 6-digit, developed by the World Customs Organization for the classification of goods. Harmonized system is a multi-purpose product nomenclature with use that range from tariff collection and trade strategic compilation to the trade negotiation, determination of origin of goods, and monitoring control goods. So this harmonized system, how is it work in Singapore? Example, they have harmonized system code, for example, 220-8300, 220-4211, 870-8099. If example, if you go to the Singapore Customs website, where you key in the HS code number, allow me to show you this. Just to show how does it work. Okay, okay, there's some technicality. I will come back to you and show you how does harmonized system work. We just continue on this. Can you all see my slide? Is it okay? I'll come back to the slide again. Of course, I can't share the slide.
So are you facing any problem?
Yeah, the slide is not. Can you all see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. Okay. Let me. Okay, how is it clear?
Yes.
Okay, good, great. Okay. So what you do, you go to harmonized system, you can key in this later, maybe end of the course, I show you how to key in. Once key in, what it will do, it will show you, I'm sorry, somebody. Can you all hear? Good, okay. This, when you key in this harmonized system code, this under this website, which I have shown you, it will automatically will show you whether it is, how much is a duty, GST, if it is a dutiable goods, and also will show you if it is a motor vehicle, what is it do. For example, this two is for liquor, this is for the motor vehicle. The responsibility and function of IE Singapore, that means International Enterprise Singapore and Singapore Customs. Okay, IE Singapore is an agency under the Ministry of Trade and Industry, spearheading the development of Singapore external economic wing, is promoting the overseas growth, helps in enterprises Singapore develop business capabilities, and position Singapore as a base for foreign business to expand into the regional partnership with Singapore-based economies. It is linked with other agencies, Singapore Customs, Singapore Information Service Limited, INSEAS, Crimson Logics. Who is this Crimson Logic? Crimson Logic is a person, is a provider of the software to create the permit or generate the permit. Later, I'll show you the permit, how does it look like, which will give you various type of permits. Again, it is linked with other agencies and controlling agencies. This is about international enterprise Singapore. What about Singapore Customs? Singapore Customs is, which is formed as a Customs and Excise Department. Before that, it was known as a Singapore Monopoly. Very important is, custom doesn't mean always to go after the people to penalize. It is always a trade facilitation. It is a preventive, and as well as is also doing the enforcement if there is any irregularities or anything. Is the lead agencies on trade facilitation and revenue enforcement matters. It is also responsible for the implementation of customs and trade enforcement measuring, including those related to free trade agreement and strategic goods control. Just a simple explanation about Singapore Customs and Excise Department in April 2003, split into two parts. One is become Singapore Customs, partner with IE Singapore. Formerly, IE Singapore was controlling or maybe taking care of the export. Now Singapore Customs taking care of the export and import. And previously known as Singapore Immigration Registration, combined together with Singapore Customs, become an ICA, Immigration Checkpoint Authority. Very unique about Singapore is ICA is a thing. They are at the checkpoint doing the facilitation of clearance, even though Customs is actually functioning as a authority of the import and export procedures. The main role of Singapore Customs, collection of custom revenue. I just go it very fast because you can see all this in the website. Then later we go to the core things. What is the, as Mr. Hari said, what is the tips for a businessman in Singapore? So provision of one-stop solution to trade and custom matters such as issuance of permits, license, certificate of origin, and provision of classification and valuation advice. Facilitation of a trade through simplification of custom procedures and administrative checks and suspension scheme. Enforcement trade requirement under the respective free trade agreement. They mean to say what happened is we do have a lot of free trade agreement. For example, in Singapore, you take a beer, they have a two type of duty, which is the customs duty and excise duty. If you are a businessman, you just go and import, just you have to pay all the duty. But what you need to do, you go to the website, you can find out what are the countries Singapore has a free trade agreement. When you have a free trade agreement, a portion of duty customs will be exempted or will not be paid. At least you can save from this. That's where I'm saying earlier about a cost leadership, where you have to focus on this. Regulation of a trade, strategic goods and strategic goods technology, which I mentioned earlier. Strategic goods is most important. In Singapore, whatever we want to import into Singapore, we have to give them the end user certificate, ensure that or the end user are going to use for the right procedures. My example that once I was doing an inspection of a goods, this is actually equipment to see which can see through the wall. So a person want to bring in this, they have to take a strategic goods control authority. They got is when you import, you have to have an import certification. Why it is? This person can be used for any purposes. So when he went for inspection, he told me that he's a plumber. So he need to see through the wall to see whether any leakages or anything. At the same time, when you want to sell to other people, they also have to have a delivery verification. You cannot simply dispose it to the market. So this is most important. You need to know about the strategic goods, whether the goods are importing is falls into strategic goods or normal goods. Okay. I just explained to you briefly about the TradeNet system. In Singapore, the TradeNet system is a one platform which solves everything. For example, you're an importer, you need to bring in the goods. Those times you need to go to various authority to get approval. Here, you don't have to do that. For example, you want to get, you want to bring in a liquor into Singapore or any food stuff into Singapore, you have a food control authority and Singapore government, Singapore Customs, IE Singapore. For all this, what you need to do if you're bringing into Singapore, just you need to declare just one permit that is called import permit or maybe a transshipment permit. When you when you go and declare everything, as a declarant, you key in all the information into the system. It automatically will divert into various authority. So in order to do that, very important, earlier I was mentioning you must use the right HS code. If you don't use the right HS code, we might not go to the authority. For example, for a food product, you don't use a food product, HS code, you use a normal product, HS code, you won't go to the authority. End of the day, when you come, you're doing an incorrect declaration. But when you use a food control authority, you'll go to the food control division, automatically go through everything. Within 15 to 20 minutes time, the permit will be just come back to your printer. You just have to print the permit. You can go and clear everything. So in that, you can use for payment of duty, payment of GST, or as I mentioned earlier, major exporter scheme, which you don't have to pay any duty or GST. All these are declared by permit. So the permit normally valid for about 14 days, generally, some are 2 days, 3 days. Within the period, you can clear the goods, should be okay. It is something like a passport to the goods. So it's the same thing again, national trade platform or trade exchange. This is a single platform. A lot of people amazed with Singapore, which we are doing this. You go to other countries, still a problem is actually, for example, if you want to bring in a goods, you have to go through many people, many agency, many authority. But in Singapore, you just sit in your PC, you key in all the information, everything is go through all the authority, after they come back to you. But of course, like strategic goods control and all this, what you need to do, you have to do it in 3 days in advance. Sometime the other authority, for example, MINDEF or any other authority, they need to check whether which country it is going to, whether do they have any like kind of immunization, any problem. So due to that, you have to do in advance, maybe 3 days earlier. But others, within 15 to 20 minutes, you will have the permit. You will be amazed that if you are become a declaring agent, okay, that's one of the possibility you can make a lot of money. What happened in Singapore, a person become a declaring agent, just have to go for the course, become a declaring agent, you can operate your own permit. They mean to say, for example, Mr. A, he is not a trader. He just want to be only a declaring agent, declare permit for many people. He can do that. Generally, they charge about $25 to $30, but the cost is only about $2 plus. So one day, imagine they're going to create about 100 permit. Okay, how much you going to earn? About $3,000. But the cost for 100 permits is only $250. That's where you can have a good income from even declaring the permit. Again, this NTP platform, that means National Trade Platform, is a single interface going through a multiple system, simplified trade information, faster trade document and processing. And in Singapore, we have this, excuse me. You can have kind of example, you have like IS and all this. So you can have a trade first from Singapore Customs. There are 5, this premium band, enhanced band, intermediate band, standard band, and basic band. If you want to do this, what you have to do, you have to just go to the Singapore Customs website, and there is some contact point which you can apply for this. When you apply for this, when you get this band, it's something like when you have some licensing, you'll have a better facilitation, extension of period and all this. This is a better facilitation. You're having it with Singapore Customs. Okay. Trade documentation, trade policy, importance of trade, Singapore dependency. A lot of people, countries, they depend on Singapore. Singapore is a transshipment hub. What is a transshipment? The goods come from overseas, transshipping through Singapore. The reason is actually what will happen is sometimes around the region in Singapore, a lot of countries, they do not have a port facilities, maybe a small port facilities. Big ships cannot go there. They will come to Singapore. They will break bulk it. After that, they transship to the next country. So Singapore is a place where in the world, you have an integrity system. So you must be very careful as a trader. when you want to bring in goods into Singapore, sometimes what will happen is you have to ensure to tell your exporter you ship the right goods what you're going to bring in. So IE Singapore also playing a great role in this. Singapore economic policy is a free trade and it is an open market. You can bring in any goods, you can export any goods with the controlling, most important. Of course, certain prohibited goods or maybe control goods you cannot bring in. For example, chewing gum is a prohibited goods you cannot bring in. Okay, some control goods you cannot bring in. But of course, certain authority they should be able to bring in. So what happened? I want to bring in a control goods. Can I just bring in? It's a good market for me. For example, handcuff. Handcuff is used by all the authorities like police enforcement agency. But if you want to bring in, what you can do, you go through the relevant procedures because maybe you think you can make a good money, then get the end user certificate if it is necessary. After that, you go and apply for the permit, bring it, deliver to them. For example, I was telling about polygraph examination. If you want to do Singapore polygraph examination, there are private operators. They want to bring in equipment, yes, all the way you can do it, but go through the proper authority. Singapore is an export-oriented goods. All the goods can be exported. Of course, there are some control in this. Minimum duty, GST 0 to 7%. Why 0 or 7%? As I mentioned earlier, whenever goods you are coming into Singapore, you don't have to pay duty GST immediately. You can hold it. And you are a taxable person, you can collect back the GST. So this way is 0 or 7% and other duties. When you go through the trade platform, and once there was somebody was asking me from overseas, is there any other trade platform in Singapore? There's only one, okay, which is managed by this Crimson Logic. So this will reduce errors with minimize data re-entry. That means when you go through, just key in everything perfectly all right. At the same time, when you make a mistake, immediately you can amend it within the validity period. Certain thing you cannot amend, you just write to the right authority. They will help you to amend the thing before importation. Of course, once you bring in ready, immediately you can amend it. If not, you can inform the authority that you have done a mistake. Definitely, they will help you to in this. Will improve the efficiency. As I mentioned earlier, a permit will cost only $2 plus. It's increased global competitiveness in Singapore. When you want to bring in into Singapore, the goods, you can bring in through transshipment through bill of lading. That means when you bring in the goods within the FTZ, just you can export it out, or you can do it by transshipment by declaration. For example, the goods coming into Singapore, deposited into maybe like Tanjung Pagar, there is a Brani gate. After that, you need to bring to Changi Airport. What I'm going to do? Do I have to pay the GST? I'm going to travel. No need. You can take a transshipment permit from from the Tanjung Pagar gate to go into Changi FTZ. When you take out the transshipment permit, you just have to go to the customs or ICA checkpoint, tell them I'm going to move these goods. What they do, they will seal the container if necessary. If it is just a normal conventional cargo, they do some inspection and shop. The goods will move to Changi FTZ. When you go into the Changi cargo clearance, they will check again, then endorse the thing. That's it. Okay, ready. So in that sense, you'll save the payment of GST. I'm not sure whether all the countries have this facilitation. Singapore, we have a special facilitation. There's a reason why that a lot of people choose Singapore as a transshipment hub. The type of permits which can be used at free trade zone. Type of custom permit is inward permit. Inward permit means you bringing the goods into Singapore, payment of GST or payment of duty together, that is called an inward permit. Transshipment permit. So inward permit means, for example, you come here, you are bringing the goods into Singapore, you already have a customer, which you're going to deliver to the customer, you're going to collect all the money, which you have to pay duty GST, that is called an inward permit. Other inward permit you can bring into a licensed warehouse, you can bring into the bonded warehouse without payment of duty GST. Transshipment permit. What is a transshipment permit? As I explained earlier, from one port to the other port, you want to move the goods, you make a transshipment permit. So the goods will move from one point to another point without payment of any GST. Now, what is a removal permit? Singapore, everything is controlled. At the same time, is accounted by documentation. Example, I bring in some goods from overseas. I put into warehouse A, which is a bonded warehouse. After I putting in for some time, I see that warehouse A, maybe the charges is very expensive. I want to move to warehouse B. Is that possible? Yes. What you need to do, you have to take a removal permit from warehouse A, just you move to warehouse B. After I moving to warehouse A, from warehouse A or warehouse B, I have already got a customer. What I need to do, I need to make a payment of duty GST. That's it. So when you make a payment of duty GST, of course, you're going to claim back from your customer that the payment of duty GST. For example, we buy a car. See, when coming in car, maybe it's very cheap. So coming to Singapore, you pay the 20% of tax to the custom, then about close to 100% to the LTA. After that, you pay the COE, everything. But if you're a trader, what are you going to do? But coming only, you pay the 20% tax. The car never sell for so many days. My 20% is stuck there. That's the reason you can push them into the license warehouse. You do not have a license warehouse, you don't worry. There are a lot of people operator with license warehouse. Just deposit them inside. So they will take care of it. When come to the time you need to pay the duty GST, you can pay them. Then comes to outward declaration. I bring in the goods into Singapore. After bringing the goods into Singapore, after some time, I have a customer from overseas. What I'm going to do I have to pay tax? For example, you're a taxable company. If you already pay the tax, you can claim back the tax. So it's very important, even though you don't reach the million mark, still you can register for GST, which you can claim back the tax anytime. Then duty exemption and duty relief certificate. Duty exemption, what is duty exemption? As I mentioned earlier, like example, diesel, petroleum and all this, you got to pay their duty. At the same time, if you're going to use for the in some industrial, you can ask for the exemption. Sometimes you can get a GST exemption. Example, you bring in goods from overseas, less than 400 of value, sample and all this, you can have a GST exemption as well. All right. How does this permit system work? When a trader declare the permit into the system, taking in all the information, it will go to IE Singapore. After that, it go to all the agencies. Then, if necessary, then go to Singapore Custom. After that, it flow back to the declarants, the printer. So within a few minutes, you can see the permit has been printed in your printer. Normally, the goods are classified into two categories mainly. One is a conventional and one is containerized. Conventional means it's a loose cargo. Containerized, it means it comes by the container. So sometimes what will happen is, if you know that they call it FCL or LCL. FCL means full container load. That means the container coming into Singapore belongs to one person. Full container load doesn't mean the container must be very full. It can be half, three-quarter, but consigned to one consignee. It is called full container load. If consigned to many consignee, they call it LCL. LCL means less than container load, which is consigned to many consignee. So when the goods come into Singapore, what will happen is, if it is a conventional, it's coming to Singapore, ICA will do the inspection. When check the goods and everything, whether they found any discrepancy, then they will refer to the relevant authority to action. If it is no discrepancy, anything, it automatically will go to the traders. Inspection of cargo for the containerized, they have called it green channel and red channel. In Singapore, our system is very, very sophisticated, but it is actually user-friendly. Example, a container coming from overseas, we have also another agency called Singapore Port Authority. So when they key in all information, including the container number, when the container pass through the transpondent of the exit point of the PSA, is automatically detect that all the permit will be cleared, which is in the green channel. So what they will do, sometime ICA, they want to do inspection in a green channel too. What they will do, they will check. After that, if nothing is there, they will put a green color seal. When green color seal, when it's go to trader, they can just open. If they found any discrepancy, they will engage another like red color seal. So when it is a red color seal, the trader have to apply for unstuffing facilities. After that, the custom officer or anybody come and check the goods. Later part, if nothing found, it will be just released. If anything found, further action will be taken. This is sometimes is selected for check, where just now I mentioned they use the red seal. So customers are going to trader premises and do the inspection. If nothing, they will just release the goods to them. I was mentioning about a permit requirement for export, transport, and transit of the strategic goods control. I will not go through very in detail because this strategic goods control not many people dealing with. But remember, strategic goods control, you need to have a permit in advance, ensure all the regulatory clear, including the end user certification. Need to have a permit before all the STGC. Of course, the other goods also need to have a permit. Of course, we can get within a short frame of time, but strategic goods, you have to have it in advance. They call it a joint declaration 3. Why joint declaration 3? There are 3 things involved in Singapore. Singapore Custom, at the same time, other authority is become joint declaration 3. So what are the supporting documents required for strategic goods control? Very important is the end user certificate. When you produce the end user certificate, the relevant authority will check whether this person is in a red flag status. Normally, they have a system to check. After checking, if it is clear, then they will clear the thing. If not, unable to export, because Singapore is a country where really all in the globe is looking into. Import authorization from country of import for immunization list and anything like a weapon of mass destruction, you need to have a import authorization with the countries. Technical specification of the goods, example, operating instruction, manual, brochure, data sheet. This all must be prepared in advance before you apply for strategic goods. I have come across a lot of people, what they do, earlier I was come back to again, they lost a lot of money. The reason why, they already booked the vessel, they already booked all agencies, but the permit is not clear, they are not able to export. So they have to wait again, they have to cancel, or sometimes they pay the cancellation fees. This way, the strategic goods control is very important. You have to be in advance, you have to take the permit and everything. So for the custom procedures, you have a customs conditions, which is also we have a validity of permit and custom clearance. Okay, in order to use this, what I do, I just share one of the permit. Let me, at least you will be able to see. New share. You are able to see this? Will you be able to see maybe a thumbs up from anyone to see whether you all see a permit? Vasandam? Oh, yeah.
There is no permit. I think it's just a customs procedure.
Okay, so I will share that thing.
So you wanted to say something, sir?
Yeah, correct. Okay, that means I have to. Sorry, that technically okay. There's a new slides. Oh, there's no new. Okay. Okay, let me come back to later. Okay, I got it. Okay, how about now? Can you see? Okay, good, great. Okay, because if I talk about permit, then you all don't understand. At least I have to share something for you. For example, this permit. Sorry, I have some background. Is it clear? Can you all hear me? You all
Yes.
can able to see the permit. Okay,
Yes.
so I have to explain by this. Then will be most important. Example I mentioned earlier. I have just crossed the importer for identity. This will be the importer on record. and you will have this UEN number. This is the most important. Please do not let other people to use your UEN number, and then you will be in trouble already. Because the reason why, if they have to bring in any contraband goods, you will be in trouble. So when you apply for a permit, this is a permit. This is an import permit, which is called an invert permit here. Its validity is here. That means it is valid for is about 14 days. You will be await here. Then the how many quantity you are bringing in. Then total GST amount 100. As I mentioned earlier, this goods is going to just a bonded warehouse. So when you go into the bonded warehouse, there's a no duty GST involved. So what you can see here, GST amount is this, but nothing is payable. It is 0. Okay. Then this move into the GST. This is where I was mentioning about the HS code. 989200030 is unique to this product. That means to say something, the brand can be different. This is a product, this is a declaring agent. Okay. So where is the condition? Example, here's a condition. Approved by Singapore Customs, approved by Customs subject to the importer, exporter, declaring agent, or any declaring complying with the following condition. What are the conditions? The goods declared in this permit are imported, exported under the 0 GST warehouse. That means straight away you go to that. Goods not exported, transshipped, or bonded into 0 GST warehouse, receive at the claimant. The same day of the removal must be stored. These are the conditions. The permit must not be used, must be cancelled or revalidated. What will happen if you have taken a permit? You didn't bring in the goods. Of course, when you bring in the goods, generally they will scan this. If it is come by container, when they clear the container, automatically the permit will be scanned. If you don't use a permit, you cannot be just lacking, say, hey, I don't use a permit. Why should I do? You have to cancel the permit. If not, the relevant authority will come after you to ask why you have not been using the permit. So this is a sharing of a permit. I do have other permits. Let's see whether we have time later. I'll share with you more permit. At this point of time, any question or anything? Okay, if not, we go back to the slide again. Okay. Can you all see the slides now? Just a thumbs up. Okay. What's enough?
Yes, but with the notes.
With the notes. Okay. So I
Can you
need
remove
to, let me see.
There's a cross there.
Okay, 1 minute.
On top.
Apology.
On
Is it
top
here?
on your right hand side, sir.
Right hand side.
I think towards the next slides. That
It's like, yeah, okay.
on top
I
of
know,
it.
but how to move out the, it's okay. I don't have any notes there, but you all can see the screen. I already memorized all the notes, so no problem. So customs goods, can you all see them?
But it's too small.
Still small, eh? Okay. Just now, Chandra taught me how to explain it. Let's see. Any idea? Anybody knows?
Help him to remove one of the slides.
Help to remove slide, is it?
Yes, I think the one on top of it. The,
Oh, okay.
can you remove? Now okay. You can go.
Okay, now I go to this. Let's come back to,
Oh,
okay. Escape. Can I just reshare again? Something like a duplicate slide, right?
yes. Can I go?
Two
anything?
slides are coming one after the other.
Okay,
There are
okay.
two slides there. So just remove one slide, then follow the template.
For
Sir, can you go to the display setting?
display setting, eh?
Yeah. Click that
Wait,
one. On top. On the custom procedures on top. Towards
custom
Yeah, on top. You can
I don't,
see display setting a little bit up.
I don't see the display setting.
Okay. Correct. That's
Okay,
the display
right.
setting.
Okay, good. You got it? Is it good?
Duplicate slideshow.
See,
Fantastic.
is it now? Now it's good? Good? Can see?
Okay, yes.
Okay, all right, then I can move. Okay, thank you very much. So another custom procedures, you will have a dangerous cargo. What happens is when you receive a dangerous cargo, you have to go and deposit into the class 2 yard or maybe there's a dangerous goods yard and documentation FTZ and repacking and FTZ. So warehousing of dutiable and non-dutiable goods, I have explained earlier already. Okay. The other thing is what happened is earlier I explained to you, temporary importation. What happened is I'm a dealer in diamond. Okay. I'm bringing the goods, the values about few $1,000,000. So if I were to pay the GST upfront, then if I don't sell it for 3 months, my money will be stuck there. So what you need to do, you just have to apply for temporary importation. When you apply for temporary importation, what will happen is actually they will give a certain time frame you can display. Then after that, if anything, maybe you go back to the authority if you need any extension, subject to approval. Import of certain trade supplies are the same thing. And re-importation, that means what you do, if you bring in this temporary import, after that, you have to do the re-importation. You export it out. Example, you export it out to other country for display, then you can do the re-import. So when you can prove that you export to other country, when you bring it back into Singapore, you don't have to pay tax again. Because the reason is you can prove this is export from Singapore. Unless any other modification done in overseas, then there will be some cost difference. So in order to do this, definitely custom will ask for the security requirements. If you go to this website there, you can see all the what are the fees required by Singapore Customs. And again, it's not only Singapore Custom I mentioned earlier, GST. GST is who is controller of authority, is the Inland Revenue Authority of Singapore, right? In Singapore, as mentioned earlier, the tobacco or cigarette product, motor vehicle like motorcycles, fuels, like a motor spirit, and liquor or dutiable. Then others all just only GST applicable only. And anyway, when you pay duty, GST, for example, for this dutiable product, you have to calculate the duty. That duty part will be going into the value again, CIF plus the duty. Later will show you how to compute it. Then become the total GST payable. So what is GST in Singapore? Of course, many of us know that we go to a shop, we buy things, we pay GST. So I'm as a consumer, I'm buying GST. What about a trader? Do you have to pay GST for everything? Either you got to pay or you can use the facilitation by Singapore Customs or IRAS, like MES scheme, which you don't have to pay the GST. Then when you sell the goods, you collect from customer, then you can account to IRAS. So the GST or goods and service tax is known as a tax on a domestic consumption only. It is charged when a taxable supply or goods service taken. That means you already supply the goods. Taxable supply made in Singapore, then the GST is chargeable. So what about I trade in overseas? You don't have to. They are made by a taxable person. It means to say, in order to charge a GST from a customer, you must be a GST registered person. So generally, you cross something like, if I'm not mistaken, $1 million, you automatically become a GST taxable person. But what will happen is actually, if you want to enjoy these taxable facilities, you can register as a taxable person as well. So they are made in the course of the furtherance of any business carried out by taxable person. GST is levied irrespective of profitability. They mean to say, example, I buy the goods at $100, but I sell the goods at the loss of $80. Do you have to pay GST? Of course, you will collect the GST and you have to be accountable to customer. IRAS. It is levied both on a capital and revenue transaction, eventually borne by the end user. GST, we have called output GST, which is actually you collect from people. I mean, first input GST you pay, then after that you collect back, and you must be a taxable person. Then you must be a taxable supply. And also we have called out of scope supply. They mean, example, your company in Singapore but you are in overseas, there is a out of scope supply, you don't have to pay. Some of it also, you have example, some precious metal, you don't have to pay GST. That's why when you see that people say that precious metal, like a gold bar and certain precious metal, which you don't have to pay GST in Singapore. And this is a cycle where normally you go by every 3 months. You can find in the website what is the other facilitation available. Sometimes you can even use monthly return, because the reason why, if you are having a lot of transaction, you can go for the monthly return. The GST payment for goods on transshipment and transit in FTZ and license and bonded warehouse, which is temporary import. GST will be levied when the goods removed from FTZ, consumed in FTZ, and goods disposed in Singapore. I'm putting the goods in FTZ, free trade zone, which is, there is a no GST or tax involved. What happened? I consume the goods, or maybe the goods there is already consumed by my worker. Definitely you have to pay the GST. At the same time, when you remove it from there or remove it from the bonded warehouse, automatically GST leviable, unless you are just going to send to overseas. Come back to the major exporter scheme. Major exporter scheme is in Singapore. If you are doing trading, what happens is actually you are sending to overseas most of the time the goods. So you will be not be paying the tax if you are comes under major exporter scheme. And bonded warehouse scheme, you put into the bonded warehouse. What is the major difference between the major exporter scheme and bonded warehouse scheme? For the major exporter scheme, you can bring it to your own warehouse. There's no control over anything. But for bonded warehouse scheme, you have to bring into the warehouse, which is licensed by Singapore Custom as a bonded warehouse. Then you have to put into the either any authority, you have the license by the authority, which you have to put into that warehouse. That is a bonded warehouse scheme. So let's say, for example, you are not a major exporter. At the same time, you still want to enjoy the benefit of not paying the GST upfront. Definitely, you can go into the bonded warehouse scheme. In Singapore, when you want to bring in the goods into Singapore, the basic methodology is they are looking into the invoice. That means when the invoice bring into Singapore, you just use the invoice value under the CIF term, then you pay the invoice. But what will happen is you don't have an invoice. People giving you as a present, don't know what to do. Then what other thing can be applied? Under the WTO valuation agreement is a revision of a GATT, commonly known as Customs Valuation Code. Among custom administration, the custom valuation code is WTO's principal rule book for trade in goods. So application of CVC provides greater uniformity and certainty. Business able to predict costs in order to establish price and estimate how much profit is to be made. So most important, as a businessman, you want to bring into Singapore, you need to know the cost in order to make profit. So the cost, not only you're bringing in a sales cost only, the other costs. But of course, Singapore, very easy to say that GST only 7%. You have to know about the other incidental costs. Example, the freight charges used, the insurance if you have bought. Basic for valuation should be the greatest extent possible, be the transaction value. Whatever goods you buy from overseas, the money you paid is become the transaction value. That's most important. The transaction value is the price agreed upon by the buyer and seller in the relevant export or import transaction. The simplest and most predictable, most commercially realistic standard, the value that the parties themselves have adopted in their dealing with each other. So whenever you want to bring in the goods, so you have a transaction value that is simplified, that can be used. For example, I don't have a transaction value, what do we need to do? So it is cost, price charged by the competitors, custom value is based on a cost, price charged by competitors, buyers levels of trade, wholesale or retail, quantity being sold, typically marks up for the kinds of merchandise. So what will happen is transaction value is not there. What are the other valuation methods? If the transaction value method cannot be used, the following alternative will be used to determine the customs value: identical or similar goods value. That means they will look into the identical goods or similar goods. So customs, there is a custom valuation unit. They will just value the unit. So you have to send to them their value. Then after that, when they give the valuation, then from that, you can declare the value. Apart from it, they can use a deductive value, the sales price of the goods in Singapore, adjusted for the cost incurred after the shipment. This is the another valuation method. Computed value method, the value based on the cost of production, general expenses and profits in the country of the origin of the imported goods. The other method it can be used is a residual valuation. Residual valuation is referred to where the value determined by the Singapore custom based on flexible interpretation of all the previous method. So you can see in Singapore, not necessary, I don't have the value, then I cannot do anything. Automatically, you can use the other methodology as a valuation. So in Singapore, what happened is if I want to bring in the motor vehicle from overseas, can I bring it on my own? Or do I have to go all the way to other people, dealers to buy? Yes, you can bring in. What you do when you before you bring in, or maybe you deposit it when coming in, you have to apply for declaration of facts. You submit all the declaration about the motor vehicles. So custom valuation you need go through on that. After that, they let you know what is the value. From that, you pay the duty and GST. Okay, this is I have explained to you about the bonded warehouse earlier. By the way, actually, the talk I'm giving you, generally I give us a 1-day talk, but given as a 1 hour only, 1.5 hour, I need to just to make it a shrink, and I have to talk to you continuous. If not, there will be a lot of interaction. Maybe one day you attend my class, you can know that it will be a 1 whole day talk. Hopefully, we can do it later. So I have already explained to you about the bonded warehouse. Okay, this is some of the bonded warehouse facilities. And the license warehouse. So the difference between the bonded warehouse and a license warehouse is bonded warehouse is for GST goods only. License warehouse for all the dutiable items like tobacco, liquor, motor vehicle, all these are licensed warehouse like a petroleum item. Of course, petroleum they will put into Tenga is a license warehouse as well. Okay. Okay, let's see some. The license fees and everything you can find in the customs website. Okay. Very important when you have a bonded and licensed warehouse. Okay. You need to have this control, physical control of license premises, staffing and unstaffing operation. So if there is a need to be supervision by customs, you have to apply for supervision. Example, sometimes the goods coming to Singapore automatically will be sealed, then you have to use the supervision of custom officer. Certain item you want to do a repacking or relabeling in a warehouse or FZ, you need to have a custom supervision. Sometimes you need to have a stock check, or they will come and do the stock check. Survey and destruction of dutiable goods. The purpose of custom survey is survey on a container conventional good in licensed warehouse, conventional cargo and FTZ destruction operation. Why you need to survey a goods? For example, I bring in a goods from overseas. Example, liquor. The duty rate is $88. 1 liter. I got to pay, maybe the alcohol percentage is 50%. I got to pay $50. I receive about 100 bottles. All are broken. Do I have to pay duty? This way, you call the officer, come and do a survey. When they do a survey, they satisfied, then ask you to go and do the destruction. In that sense, you will not be paying the duty or GST for this particular goods. All will be destroyed. That is called a survey and destruction of the dutiable goods. The objective of license premises effectively administer various tax suspension schemes to safeguard revenue leakage while facilitating imports and exports. Remember, I said earlier, custom is not only for enforcement, it also facilitates import and export procedures. Conduct efficiency physical checks on selected imports to spearhead and drive the implementation of the new initiatives. Also, to maintain efficient and effective custom control over the license and bonded warehouse. Duty-free shops, excise factories, and refineries. Facilitate trade by providing quality service with minimum cost to the public. Earlier, I have mentioned the three things. One is a focus, one is the differentiation, then the other one is a cost leadership. This is how you're going to save the cost. So when you know all these facilities available, you can focus on your trade, you can be a cost leadership. At the same time, you can work different from the others. It will maintain custom control over dutiable goods in a licensed warehouse, process and approve new application for licensed warehouse. What are the type of license? You have a dutiable intoxicated liquor, completely built up motor vehicles, license to manufacture beer and stout. All these license you have in Singapore, license to distill, ferment, and manufacture other intoxicating liquors. Okay, this is all this you can find in this. I can just skip all this. Okay, all these steps you can find whatever you want to apply. You can find this. I just don't have to repeat. You just go to the website here. You can find everything, how you to do the application. Of course, this one day is not enough to guide through on all this. Okay, these are the some of the things you have to produce to do. This is a pay license fees in order. Lodge BG. Okay, beggars guarantee is very important. Whenever you have this license bonded warehouse, the duty GST is suspended, then you will have to take the beggars guarantee. So beggars guarantee, as usual, either you can pay your money or maybe you can just pledge any property through a insurance company. So the insurance company will help you to have a beggars guarantee. If any goods or anything missing, definitely customer will go after the beggars guarantee. Okay, these are the thing. Okay, what are this most important? What are the documentary controls for the licensed premises? All movement of the goods must be covered by custom permits. I was mentioning earlier, whether you're coming into the custom or remove from one house to another warehouse by the removal permit, all must be covered by the custom permit. If it is going to overseas, also covered by permit. Don't just move it out. After that, you have to end up paying the duty GST for when custom officer come for a check. Warehouse operator are required to submit their daily stock movement statement. Okay, every licensee must submit a monthly return statement to customs via their system. I have explained about this permit earlier. That means I means coming inside, in is inside, O means permit is going out, OU is also going for the permit, RM for removal permit, is there some exemption, and DP is a duty payment permit. Okay, export of duty goods from licensed warehouse, you have to have a custom outward permit. Like cigarette with the health warning clause is not allowed to be exported. Liquors with SDMP logo. Okay, this is also a very important thing. Types of physical control, you have to stuffing and unstuffing the container earlier. You need to have a supervision if there is a needed, stock check, and survey and destruction. Right? Whenever you import container and conventional cargo, is go through the ICA premises. After that, you will go into your premise. If there is a no custom checking anything, if it is a custom check, they have to come and do the checking. To check the validity of the custom permit, very important again, invoice, packing list, BL, container number, and seal number, etc. Why it is a seal number? The most important is actually whenever you bring the goods, sometime you go through a different country, the seal will be switched. So when you reach it, please ensure the BL has a same seal number as the seal number which is physically found. Okay, I've explained all this survey. Okay, these are some of the photographs which of Tenga using the petroleum and all this. In normally what they do, they'll have a blanket permit to bring in everything. Outward blanket permit, they mean to say something when you bring in, they move in a blanket. After that, they take a permit whenever they move out. This is called a blanket permit. This is how does it goods move. Just some photographs from refinery to bonnet warehouse. Okay. Before we go to Q&A, just to explain about how the duty and GST. Example, if you have a normal goods, how are you going to declare? Example, a table, the cost is $100. So the exchange rate is $1.35 in the US dollars. The freight charge is $30. The insurance is $10. How to calculate the duty GST? In this sense, you don't have a duty, it's only a GST. This is how it will be calculated. The FOB USD is $100. You have to change to 135 because of 1.35. FOB stands for free on board. Then the CNF, they mean because earlier we have seen that there is a $30 of freight charges. So it's become $30 added here, freight charges. It become 165. Then insurance is $10, 175. 175. So GST 7% is $12.25. What happened is if it is a dutiable item, what you will do after going through this dutiable item, if for example motor vehicle, you will add in the 20% of motor vehicle, $35 to the cost. So from this only you will have the GST, which is 14.7%. And if you computation of for the liquor, sometimes what will happen is where I was mentioning earlier, you have to look at it. Let's say, for example, liquor, a liter is $88. Not necessary you have to pay the $88. Look at the alcoholic percentage, 15%. So what you need to do when you do this, you have to just put the 15% alcoholic percentage, which become a 13.2 cent UT. Add the 13.2 cent to the cost, it become a 7%, 13.7. Okay, that's all for today. We have almost covered everything. Maybe Ms. Vasantham, you have collected any question or anything?
No, it's okay. I think Mr. Hari is taking over
Okay,
with
sure.
you along.
Okay, thank you very much. Of course, this is
Thank you,
actually.
Mr. Farihullah. Thank you so much. It was very wonderful. And
So can I? Okay, now I'll leave the slides. If any question. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much, Mr. Farihullah. I think our audience would like to know exactly why we chose this topic.
Okay.
Basically, the world trade, international trade, there's a lot of legislations and regulations imposed in many countries. Different regulations, different issues are there. So it is important for this business community to understand when they are dealing in trade. And to make things worse, now we have the Russian and Ukraine war. As such, we chose this topic so to give an insight of the legislations and regulations worldwide. So we'll go into the, and we wish to thank you for this 1 hour 45 minutes of your presentation.
Most
now we'll
welcome.
go into Q&A.
Yeah.
And I think you need a thunderous applause for this. So those who have the reaction sign, please give him a thunderous applause. So I think he really deserves it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. No worry, I'm actually a phone call away. If you all need any help or anything, please, of course, you can get back to me. This is not only the thing is an important expo procedure. As I mentioned earlier, the other authority, LTA, we do have others. As being an investigating officer, I don't deal with customs alone. I deal with the other agencies as well, like a police. Maybe like, for example, you want to bring in something related to arm and explosive. There is police involved. Other food control authorities are always ready to give explanation on this.
Thank you. Now we'll go into the Q&A proper.
Yeah.
I'd like to see whether in the chat group there's no Q&A. I don't see any Q&A.
Okay.
Now let me ask a question. So to generate something.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. Now we have this, today's talk is about international trade and regulation requirements,
Yes,
but these regulations are more
regulatory.
specific to Singapore.
Yes, correct.
Is the other countries, does the same regulation applies?
Okay, good question. For example, in Singapore, what we're looking into is only Singapore regulatory requirement. If you want to go other regulatory requirement, as I mentioned earlier, one of the thing is strategic goods control. So when you want to export a goods to overseas, okay, example country A and country B. Country A maybe is a red flag country. Even you want to export a pencil lead, okay, which can be used to make a so-called weapon of mass destruction. To ensure you have to clear through Singapore the regular authority to going to the right person. That is the regulatory requirement for others. But other thing, for example, applicable in the other country, just a normal good. If you want to export something else from Singapore, it's applicable to the other country. Only very important Singapore. I give an example like you are bringing in you are sending out example gold from Singapore to overseas. Very important. You have to declare everything. GST declaration. That's it. No more ready. But it is, for example, it's going to overseas like India, Bangladesh, anything. The other countries it's applicable. It is not for Singapore. Singapore authority will look into whether your compliance to the Singapore regulation. That is the most important.
Thank you so much for the answer. The next one is you mentioned about the UN number,
Yes, correct.
the importance of UN number, and to be more careful
Yes.
that no one uses that number.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in Singapore, if you go into Accra, we can get any company's UN number by
Exactly.
paying $5.50.
Exactly.
How can we or the business community protect themselves from others using the UN number?
Exactly. Thank you, Harisa. In fact, what happened is even you go to the website, UN website, you can take out the number as well. So that's why one of the slide I mentioned, Singapore Custom, they have an alert system. You mean to say when you're using your registered Singapore Custom, you can tell them if anybody uses my UN number, there will be alert into your phone to say that somebody using it, or maybe are using it. Immediately you can check, you can inform the authority, hey, this goods is not belongs to me, somebody using the UN number, so the officer will be alerted on that. So there is an alert system that's in customs. But anyway, like if you talk about others, in fact, not much of importation usage. The get deeper, the control is custom. They have this alert systems.
Okay, let us see whether now we are in the gallery. We can see the participants. Mr. Banka, do you like to ask a question? Normally, you like to ask a question. Can you unmute yourself?
If no question, at least you can comment. Anything can be improved.
Yeah. Mr. Banka, can you unmute? Okay.
Yeah, okay, done. First of all, I must say it's a very great presentation.
Thank you.
Very, very explanatory. I have been knowing some of the trade regulations, not specific to Indonesia, not specific to Singapore, but I have been in international trade. So in general, I know a little bit of the international trade. But you very rightly explained about what are the regulations and requirements specific to Singapore, which is very, very elaborate and interesting. So I say thank you very much. It was a very great experience, though I'm not using it at this moment, but who knows, tomorrow I may be in international trade from Singapore. I was in international trade, I almost like the whole globe when I was in Indonesia just a few months back.
Thank you.
In fact, thank you very much. In fact, what happened is actually, of course, in different country, different system might be applicable. But I have been to many countries. Many of them, they take the Singapore as a model. Example, GST especially. In before 1994, the texts are different. For example, woven clothing, different text. Stitch clothing, different text. All are various texts. Now they standardize everything into 7% only. Of course, it started with 3% and goes on to 7%. Other than that, of course, not only customs, other regulatory. For example, if you go to US, there's a border control. Okay, I was once when I went to US, looking at my name and all this, I was just detained for a while. Okay, but in fact, when I asked them, in fact, I went as a representatives of a federal government. Even though I'm a federal government, they checked through everything. Of course, end of the day, I found out because what happened is when they issue me a visa, there was some spelling error, so there was a issue. But what happened is I was there for almost 2 hours. They don't want to reveal to me anything. Then I told them, of course, I declare myself. I'm from one of the authority. You have to tell me. But the Singapore system is that when you detain someone, you're telling right. After that, they told me, oh, this is a problem here. Yeah, so that's why different country, different regulation.
Thank you.
We,
I think Dr. Dean, are you there? Are you present, Dr. Dean? If you are there, please unmute yourself and ask any question. Okay. Dr. Dean, I think.
Maybe Halima is here.
Yeah, Dr. Halima, are you there?
Invitee after
Dr. Halima, are you there? Can you unmute yourself? Dr. Halima Sadia from India, are you there?
And Dr. Dean is online ready now. Dean?
Dean is on the line?
Dr. Dean, you want to unmute
Yes,
yourself.
I'm very much here.
Okay.
Hi everyone. I'm very much here.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Halima is from India. She's running an educational institution and she has come to Singapore to present awards to various leaders, community leaders. And today she is present in our business discussion. Thank you so much, Dr. Halima. You'd like to ask any question?
I want to congratulate Farihullah Sahab, and then I want to say that after listening his lecture, now I am planning to leave the education and come into trading.
That is wonderful.
No,
wonderful.
It's like wonderful in Singapore because I was in training before 1995, but I didn't know all this. If I have no earlier, maybe I could be in a different trading platform. After I came into custom, of course, it is not a bad choice, which I have learned a lot. And as I have mentioned, today I'm also investigating in a polygraph examiner. So in fact, I've been just helping out the people, whosoever they come to me, how they can do the trading in Singapore with a very, very minimum cost. Very, very minimum cost. That's the most important here because to a businessman, very important is the cost and the profit. So here, as I mentioned earlier, if you have follow the various scheme, your cost will be very, very bare minimum. Mr. Dr. Dean, you have unmuted, I think. You want to ask something?
Yeah, Pari, even though I'm doing business, import and export and quite a lot of things, but I really learned a lesson today, which I doesn't know. More than 50% of the information what you have given is really wonder. I have to thanks to, first of all, to Mr. Hari to arrange for this kind of meeting and the topic which you have selected. Thank you very much again.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You are with me, and I can't even know that you are so talented regarding this thing. Inshallah, I will arrange a meeting again. Thank you.
No, always with you beside you. No worry.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think the constraint of time is there.
Yes.
Last question. Anyone like to ask a last question? Okay.
Maybe our member Chandrika is there.
Yeah. Chandrika, you like to ask any question? Okay.
All right.
Generally, I think due to the time constraint.
Sorry, sir. I'm
Yeah.
here, but I'm
Yeah.
actually at work as well. So sorry.
Okay.
So, but then you said that you have a lecture, right? I
Yeah.
might want to join it, so you can disseminate your information. Then I might want to look at it, and then I'll talk to you separately. Thank you very much.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank
She's
you.
talking about the full day lecture.
Yes, correct. It will be arranged in a seminar basis. When there is, definitely I will inform you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for
Thank you, Dr. Halima, Dr. Dean, and the various other members who are here today. And we have people from different walks of life. It's quite interesting. I hope they benefited from the talk. We'll be holding or conducting similar talks every quarterly. So if you have any specific business topic which you like to request, please send an email to us and we will try to accommodate your request by having different business talks every quarterly. So thank you, thank all of you for joining this session, and a big thank you to Mr. Farihullah for giving a wonderful talk. Only thing is a constraint of time for him. Otherwise, you were given more information. Thank you so much.
In
Thank all of
fact,
you.
I always wanted to make you all how to make more money through the recruitment process. The next time I will do that.
Thank you so much.
Most
Thank you.
welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay, thanks. Okay,
Bye.
have a great weekend and a long weekend as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Zoom master,
Yes.
you can close the session. Thank you so much.